test.
Good morning. Talking into it. It is not working. Okay. Any other questions? It is not yet, and it should be, so I'm hoping they figure it out shortly. Good morning. I can give her mine. Well, I'll be great once the mic starts working. Uh,
Test, test, test.
Brandon, Bill, still not on. Oh, you got it muted? Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm so glad to see you today. Yes, I'm still talking, and I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything. And I think they would, yeah. Should we? It's off mute. Could we get a handheld ready for me, maybe? All right, full team. There's another announcement I think I forgot to throw in about Evelyn's photos. If you could just remind folks, this is their last chance to buy Evelyn Dolphin's paintings. I don't know. I copied Holly on your email because they haven't been telling me. I'm not seeing her. Let me check my email to see if she responded. If not, we'll just have to say, is someone... Well, that's the announcement. The stewardship moment is somebody else. Okay. Brooke Carnes is doing the stewardship minute. And then, and Holly will do the announcement. So yes, Brooke will come to do the moment. Yeah. All right. Are we ready to go? Oh. Well, I was mainly looking at the tech guys.
Test. This is barely picking up. I can hear it.
It's all good.
Test.
Any luck? Looks like I'm getting a handheld. All's well. Thank you. Okay. Wow. Yeah. We gotta go. Go ahead and ring. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to this Unitarian Universalist Church, which includes our church here in Birmingham, our church in Tuscaloosa, and all of our folks online. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are today, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. This morning, we are discussing the power of human consciousness, and so I invite you into this discussion today. To all who are here this morning, welcome home. The prelude prepares us for worship.
We who are here assembled have made a conscious choice. We live intentionally. May we keenly attend to the silent, pulsing needs here present at the altar, made sacred by the power of our communion. In the spirit of inclusivity and welcome, please take a few moments to greet those around you, especially people you may not recognize. Folks online, please greet each other in the chat.
Good morning. Good to see you. Good morning. How are you all? Hey. Yes, it's nice to connect with you live and in person. Good morning. How are you? Yeah. It's all good. Glad to meet you all in person. Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Good. Stark is not here. His cousin is here from Utah, so he is hanging out with him today. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. I love that vest. Need to squeeze in here and see Jean. If I don't fall over, good to see you. I look forward to it. I'll see you then. Wonderful. It's so good to see you. Wonderful family. I'm glad to see you always. Good morning, Mary. Good to see you. Good morning. Good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Glad to see you up and about. Oh. Well, glad to see you.
Last meeting or two.
Good morning. How are you? Good, thanks. Good to see you. Hey. Well, I can definitely hear it now. It doesn't. See what I mean? Like it doesn't go on that side. They have to be manually flipped around. But I can hear myself. Maybe I'll try. Are we introducing it?
Oh, yeah, I guess we are. Hello, time for our first hymn. Can you please rise in body or spirit for our first hymn, which is number 313. What a piece. Oh, what a piece of work we are, how marvelously wrought, the quick contrivance of the hand, the wonder of our thought, the wonder of our thought. Why need to look for miracles outside of nature's law? Humanity we wonder at with every breath we draw, with every breath we draw. But give us room to move and grow, but give our spirit play, and we can make a world of light out of the common clay, out of the common clay.
Good morning. My name is Kylie Kerr. I'm a public school teacher, and I'm here for your Justice Minute to talk to you about some things happening in the Alabama legislature that directly impacts me, as well as other teachers and our entire state of education, quite literally. The big one is HB 511, which if you were friends on Facebook, I post about every day. I'm so not sorry. It is a proposed constitutional amendment that would allow student-led and student-initiated prayer within public school classrooms, alongside requiring public schools to conduct the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and provide students and employees with an opportunity to participate in a period of prayer and reading of the Bible or other religious text on every school day. The House has made significant changes to this bill. 2 bills were filed at the same time by the same guy because he knew that they were going to get shut down. In the original version, there was a 25% state funding loss penalty if the school board did not even take the vote. So it goes to the school boards to take a vote on whether or not to allow the prayer and the potential reading of religious texts. If they refused the vote, they could have lost, under the original bill, 25% of state funding. Thankfully, that was kicked out. The other amendments would have required the prayer to be at the beginning of the school day, make student participation in the prayer voluntary, and removes language that requires the state superintendent to investigate violations. So there's no more reporting system. Originally, there was going to be permission slips so that they could track who said yes and who said no, and they kicked that out also. So they kind of don't really know what they want to do with this. Interestingly enough, though, an amendment that would have put this in private schools was struck down. They said that private schools wouldn't have to follow this. My new favorite thing to read is the fiscal notes of bills. This bill will increase the proclamation expenses of the governor paid by the state general fund by an estimated $100,000. So increase how much spending we spend for this one thing by $100,000 estimated. There's a hearing on March 17th at 1 to discuss this. The original reason they said they wanted to do this is because students don't have enough time for prayer. Students don't know how to pray. Students don't conduct the pledge. All of those things are false. The guy said that a moment of silence is not prayer and does not count. He wants actual prayers being said. So I hope we all know that this is unconstitutional and absolutely breaks all ideas of separation of church and state. So we should be calling, emailing, showing up when we can. HB 8 and SB 305 would allow school boards to vote on whether or not to allow volunteer chaplains to be at the request of teachers. The only 3 stipulations: they must have passed a background check, have completed a recognized chaplain training program, I found one online for $2,000, and not be a registered sex offender. That's it. That's it. It provides no examples of when a chaplain may be used or requested and what type of services they would actually be providing. None. The bill is less than 2 full pages long. HB 363 would create a new crime called disruption of a worship service. So churches which are already protected by law from this, a individual who disrupted a church service on the first violation is guilty of a Class C felony. On the second, they shall serve a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years imprisonment. Other Class C felonies include first-degree stalking, breaking and entering a vehicle, third-degree robbery with actual or threatened force, and interference with custody by taking a child from the parent with legal custody. So if somebody were to come in and say, I disagree with what you're saying, this is not acceptable, felon. No appeal process for this, it seems to be. This is in response to demonstrators and protesters, and particularly journalists in Minnesota. This is retaliation. And I do want to mention one more. HB 216 would require each local school board to display the 10 Commandments in a context stating the history in all classrooms serving 5th through 12th grade and in a public space, so the library or the lunchroom of a K through 4 school. This has been re-referred to committee in the House of Origin, the House, but it has a sister bill in the Senate. There is a hearing this week on March 18th at 1:30. The way they're getting around this is they're saying that schools have to accept donations. They have to be a certain size, they have to be a certain look, they can be whatever version of the 10 Commandments the person wants to donate. but they do provide an example. But a stranger could print them off 100, deliver it to a local school if they're in a frame and say, you have to put these up now if this were to pass. And that's how they're getting around paying for it, is because they can take donations. I do want to mention a good bill, which I'm very surprised I got to mention today. SB 363, this bill would require public school students to receive instruction in violence prevention, conflict resolution, and meditation before graduation. It would require a set of standards to be developed to teach conflict resolution and violence prevention. There is a hearing March 17th at 1, so at the same time as the pledge one and the prayer, they're trying to get us, Senate versus House. If you feel moved and you need me to write these down for you, I absolutely will, so that you can reach out to people. There is also the Interfaith Alliance of Alabama is holding a rally for religious freedom on Tuesday, March 17th at 10:30, so before the committees actually meet. We can't forget about our schools. We know that this is where children spend the majority of their day with the adults in their lives that are learning the most about them other than their guardians at home. They need to know that however they believe, however they think, whatever their family does for spirituality or religion, they're not wrong. They're not a deviant, which is what one of these representatives said, and that they deserve for their rights to be protected. If you want to find me after service, I will write these down for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Kylie. All right, good morning. I am Julie Nicholson Morgan, president of the board. Please read the bottom of your connection card before you turn it in. We have lots of volunteer opportunities this week. Our church is supported by those who call our church home and by those who support the efforts of our church to change our world for the better. If this is your first time with us, please just pass the plate. We're glad you're here. We share our cash plate every Sunday with organizations whose work reflects UU values to care for marginalized persons, advocate for real and systemic change, defend our environment, and promote justice and equity for all. Today, we are sharing our plate with the Alabama Coalition for Immigrant Justice, abbreviated ACIJ. They are a group of individuals and organizations working for the rights and dignity of all people by cultivating just policies, encouraging grassroots leadership and participation, building alliances, and amplifying the voices and contributions of immigrants in Alabama. We appreciate your donations either by placing them in the plate, by mailing your donation to the church, or by using PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. More information is found in the order of service in the lower right corner. Thank you for your generous support of our church and our Share the Plate recipient. May we give in love and in hope.
Brooke Carnes has our stewardship moment this morning.
Good morning. I'm Brooke Carnes. I am a coffee person and one of the RE members for the board. Thank you. I was asked to come up here and tell why I pledged for the stewardship committee this week. If y'all don't know, I'm weird, I'm old, I'm getting all cryy. My child, Ollie, over there, I think so, has really blossomed in this church. I never thought I would go to another church again. Wasn't great when I was a kid. Didn't want to ever approach that again, but coming here, even before I had Ollie, this always felt like home. Seeing my kid be accepted, however they wake up that day. Being able to be themselves 1,000%, and no matter what, be loved, is the best thing in the world. And whatever I can do to help encourage that and continue that and support that, I'll do. And that's why I pledge. That's it.
Now we turn our minds and hearts toward one another, seeking to bring into our circle of concern all who need our love and support. Those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Today, we celebrate Eddie Easterling's retirement. We're so happy for you. We also lift up a lot of folks, but especially we'd like to start with 3 of the folks from Birmingham who have connections to this congregation who have been lost in the war with Iran. Major Alex Kleiner, Captain Ariana Savino, and Technical Sergeant Ashley Pruitt. We lift up their families and their friends and all affected by their incredible loss. We lift up all of those who have been affected by the war in Iran and those religious communities who have been pained this past week by its reverberations. The attack on the Michigan synagogue, the threats to Mayor Mamdani's home, the vial from Alabama senators defending hate. In this holy time for all, we condemn the miasmas of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and offer love to all of our neighbors. We are part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with the universe. We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness that we share, the consciousness that gives us the power to remember, to love, and to care. For those of you online, please take a moment to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. For those of you in person, please come forward and drop a stone in honor or in memory of what is on your heart today. Please join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation, followed by a moment of silence. Each moment of our living brings us closer to our dying. Young or old, the knowledge of life's end is with us, growing more real, more familiar through the experiences of time and loss. Yet what is to keep us from frittering away what time is left to us, making it almost a matter of indifference that we have passed this way? How are we to grasp the urgency of life, to know and seize the moment that will lift us out of mere survival into that realm where someone after us will say, "She truly lived"? Or is true living a day-to-day thing, the accumulation of many tiny acts that all together say, "He lived, they lived"? Either path will do. Sudden or almost imperceptible, they will lead us beyond self-preoccupation and protection to the safe ground of understanding and acceptance. We will come to know within ourselves the satisfaction and peace of having lived with consciousness and purpose. We will know the joy of having given ourselves to life. Let us take a moment of silence together. Amen and blessed be. Will the children please come forward?
Good morning. Come on up, guys. Would you like me to show everyone?
Yes.
This is, does it have a name?
Yes, it's Pine.
This is Kate's friend Pine. They would like everyone.
Baby.
It's baby. There you go. Thank you. Just so everyone knows while we gather. There we go. Are we comfy? Everybody comfy? Excellent. So I need your guys' help for a moment. Are you ready? I need your help. Need your help. And you guys out there too. First, raise your hand if you have ever been too busy thinking about something that you didn't notice what was happening right now. Maybe, yeah, raise your hand. Maybe you were thinking about what you're gonna have for lunch. Maybe you were thinking about a video game. Or maybe you were thinking about something that happened yesterday or something you have to do later. Who knows? Yeah, you're right. That happens to pretty much all of us. And I would venture to guess if you didn't raise your hand, you might be fibbing. I'm just saying. So kids, grown-ups, even grandparents. And one of the greatest gifts that we have as a human being is that we can choose to pay attention to the present moment. So let's try something all together. First of all, get comfortable. Everybody comfortable? Settle in. Are you comfy? Excellent, okay. Take a deep breath in. And then back out. Now I want everyone to listen very carefully for just 5 seconds, all right? So just listen. Did you hear anything? What did you hear? I heard a baby. Did anybody hear anything? What else did you hear? Have you heard people moving? I heard somebody cough. You coughed, yeah. So those sounds were happening all of the time we were in this room. Did you know that? People are breathing, people are moving the whole time that we're in here. And sometimes we don't even notice it. We can hear the air conditioner kick on, all that kind of things. But when we pay attention, suddenly we can hear all of that. Okay? So let's try one more thing. Are you ready? Hey, Pax, are you ready?
You ready? Now, I need everybody to look around the room and quietly, shh, see if you can notice something you've never noticed before. Maybe it's a color out the window. Maybe it's some of a pattern on a floor. Maybe it's someone's bright shoes. Did anybody find something new that they hadn't seen? What did you see? The flowers, you hadn't seen those before. What did you see, Thomas? The plant in the window? Yeah. Go right ahead. You know what's amazing? That we can sit in this room every single week and not notice things that have been there the whole time. What did you see, Kate? Those paintings on the wall? Yeah. But they were here last week. I promise you they were. And that plant, that was there. So even every day, we don't notice things because we just didn't pay attention. So our brains are always busy because we're paying attention to all this other things like what happened yesterday, what's gonna happen tomorrow, what we're worried about, what we're excited about. But sometimes when we're thinking about those things, we forget to notice the things that we actually have right now, in this moment. So being present in this moment is where life happens, right? It's where we feel joy, it's where we hear laughter, it's where we notice when someone needs a little kindness. So let's try one more thing all together, okay? Put your hand on your belly or on your heart and take a slow breath in again. And then back out. Now I want you to notice 3 things quietly. Notice one sound that you hear. Notice one thing that you see. And notice one thing that you can feel in your body right now. That's what it feels like when you pay attention in the present moment. We notice beauty that we might miss, like those plants in the window or those paintings on the wall. We notice when someone might need our help. We notice our own feelings too. And we remember that we are all connected to the world and to each other. In Unitarian Universalism, we often talk about things like living with care and compassion and centering on what we do with love. Paying attention helps us do all of those things because when we are truly present, we can love the world a little better. So today, I invite you to try a small practice. At some point today, just take 10 seconds and notice the sound. Notice a color. Notice how you're breathing. And remember that being human means that we have a wonderful ability that we can wake up to the moment that we're living in. And that moment is happening right now. So thank you all for paying attention with me. And grown-ups, could you sing us downstairs?
What makes you uniquely you? One of the things that makes me uniquely me is my experience as a hospital chaplain. And some of you may not know, but one of the requirements for ministers is called a unit of clinical pastoral education. It's one of those things Kylie was talking about as a requirement for these school chaplains. And it includes verbatims, word for word remembrances of encounters with patients, and those verbatims are processed and critiqued in a group of other students. When I signed up for CPE, as it is affectionately known, my goal was to fulfill my requirement and move on. I had other things to do. When I signed up for CPE, I also firmly believed there was no afterlife, that our human experience was merely our time breathing, and then it was over. After 4 units of CPE and several years on staff at a hospital, my understanding shifted so drastically. And death, grief, and loss all took on new meanings, some of which you have heard before. And that's a sermon for another day. But today I want to talk about that power of human consciousness, part of which I experienced in the hospital. Now, hospitals are a petri dish for understanding the potential of human consciousness and also its complexities. Medical science thrives on normal, evidence-based responses to treatment, right? And yet, it is up to brilliant medical providers to prepare for all of those abnormal responses to treatment. Because as much as we would all like to be the same, we are not, right? The nuances of consciousness included watching a patient who is sedated and intubated. They act unresponsive in that moment. But whether the brain is preventing a response is a separate question entirely. Dying patients exhibit similar confusions. While the body is shutting down, the mind seems to have an influence over how quickly death comes. Once I sat with a patient who was imminently dying, and I knew her family was on their way. After informing her that they were on their way, again, she's non-responsive, I noticed that her vital signs reacted to my engagement with her. And so I began to read and sing and speak to her for over an hour until her family arrived. That experience was one of many which dismantled some of my notions of consciousness. And later research would prove one of my theories that I had experienced in the hospital, which is that dying people can still hear for up to 15 minutes after their heart stops. The subject of consciousness has been front of mind the last few months, admittedly inspired Dr. N.S. Xavier's new book, Conscious Spirituality and Religion, that he preached on earlier this year. And our conversations together about consciousness, which if you've ever talked to Dr. Xavier about consciousness, you know that he has unbridled passion about the subject. He uses his background in psychiatry to explore consciousness through the lens of a Christian metaphor and compares how we listen to our inner voice versus transmitting our inner parrot, as he calls it, which is repeating only what we've heard from others. Now, many agree that whatever makes an individual unique, a combination of lived experiences and memories, personality, the balance of neurotransmitters and hormones, those unique aspects are part of consciousness. The question is not whether we each contain a unique inner core, that is pretty substantially true, but where that inner core originates and whether it exists beyond death. For centuries, parlance has separated out distinct understandings of this metaphysical part of us that makes us unique. The soul is how some people refer to this, and it has been defined as the unchanging, spiritual, eternal part of us, which many people believe exists beyond death and may in fact encounter another plane of existence. Consciousness, on the other hand, has been defined as how we interact with the world and process stimuli, and it can be interrupted by sleep, by anesthesia, or by death. Now, the soul is considered to be connected to something external, ethereal, outside ourselves, like a deity, for example, whereas consciousness has been seen as more temporal and intrinsic, connected to living brain tissue. Now, within the hospital setting, consciousness is a flip switch, which could be toggled, despite research showing that there is a lot more complexity than those two definitions will give us. Modern research shows us these distinctions between consciousness and soul are a little less clear. Now, for millennia, theologians and philosophers and scientists and everyone else have asked these eternal questions. And they've used these thought experiments to shape medicine and society. Plato and Socrates believed our souls both pre-exist us and continue to exist after we are gone. And they are divided into three parts: reason, spirit, and appetite. And in case you're wondering what appetite is, that's all the fun stuff. As Josh said, that's your appetite for food and many other things. The Upanishads from 2,500 years ago defined 4 states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, sleeping, and enlightenment. And they are all expressed in the meditation of the word Om. Say it with me, Om. Yeah, it's exciting. Hippocrates linked consciousness to the physical brain, and he argued that when there was injury to the brain, it created personality changes in the patient. Now, in 1953, a patient named Henry Molaison both proved and disproved Hippocrates' theory. In treating Henry for epilepsy, his surgeon removed his hippocampus. Henry's seizures improved, but he had no new long-term memories, although he could still learn new skills. It was a fascinating complexity in the study. And another doctor took over studying Henry, named Dr. Brenda Milner. And after years of studying Henry, she proved that memory is more than just one system in our brain, and that consciousness is more complicated than previously thought. Modern thinkers have explored consciousness through film. In what some consider to be the best year of film, 1999, movies made in that year pushed boundaries and technology in experimental ways, leading to one incredible movie after another on the possibilities of consciousness, but one very particular one called The Matrix. Now, if you haven't seen The Matrix, I am not going to spoil it for you. I will say it is a movie about consciousness, and it's amazing. 2010 aired the movie Inception, which is a film about a spy who would infiltrate other people's subconscious in amazing ways. And released this past weekend, Hoppers explores whether we can transfer our consciousness to animals, temporarily or permanently, in a very family-friendly format. So consciousness is very much in the milieu of our society. Now, religion and medical intervention and film have all transformed human consciousness, but sometimes life experience is the most powerful factor. In 1968, Apollo 8 became the first human shuttle to orbit the moon. As they completed their revolution of the moon, something unexpected caught their eye in the window. Bill Anders grabbed his camera to capture what would later be called Earthrise. He famously said later, "We came all this way to explore the moon, and the most important thing we discovered is Earth." Astronauts have collectively reported a change of consciousness as they view Earth from space, recognizing its frailty, acknowledging a shared responsibility for its future. This is called the overview effect, and it has created lasting changes in astronauts. They have an increase in compassion. They have a greater mindset for environmental awareness. Changing perspective, looking at things in a new way, transforms our consciousness. And because of the inexorable link which has existed for so long between religions and notions of the soul or consciousness, research in this field has understandably required a little creativity, flexibility, and some bending of the rules. The power of our consciousness in creating new neural connections between ideas and considering novel paths is literally limitless. One field exploring these questions of consciousness is called the noetic sciences, which many other scientists consider pseudo or fringe science, to be honest. But luckily for us, we are not gathered here today as a formal scientific body giving credibility to experiments. We are only here to consider the implications of some ideas. And let's not forget that many ideas that started out as pseudo or fringe science became factual. Plate tectonic theory being one, was initially considered absolutely ridiculous. Germ theory was once pseudoscience, the bacterial cause of ulcers, and the existence of meteorites. And as metaphysical as alchemy is the entire reason that we have chemistry today. So we are grateful for all of those things that pushed the bounds of other people's consciousness. Now, one of the most prevailing questions in modern noetic science is the idea of what we call non-local consciousness, or in other terms, the idea that perhaps consciousness exists outside of our physical brain. Physicians, especially anesthesiologists, are researching this distinction, and they're making a distinction between connected and disconnected consciousness. Specifically, they're looking at whether a patient who is under anesthesia is connected, meaning they are able to follow commands, or they're disconnected. They're reporting memories of things that happened in the operating room, having out-of-body experiences, and listening to conversations during the procedure, but they can't respond. They're making a distinction between those two things. The state of anesthesia being one of those places where consciousness was supposedly off is one of the great places to study in a controlled setting some of those aspects of consciousness. In William Shatner's show Unexplained, there's an episode titled Mind Over Matter, and he documents several cases of the power of human consciousness, some of which posit others to consider whether consciousness is localized and unique to each of us, or whether we are tapping into a universal consciousness and interpreting it through an individual lens. Government psychic experiments in the 70s and 80s invited people to describe military installations in other countries, places they had not been. There was no internet to look it up and to check their answers. But despite no access of these folks to this information about these remote areas in Siberia, the scientists and government researchers found unexplainable accuracy in their descriptions based on satellite imagery. Another segment illustrated people who unearthed unusual talents, usually in math, art, or music, after a traumatic brain injury, as if the injury caused new pathways to form. They would come out of the traumatic injury and be able to play an instrument they had never picked up before, or do a different kind of creative art. Now, proponents of this non-local consciousness theory showcase how stories such as this highlight that there is a greater consciousness available to everyone, some of whom access it through GABA inhibition, like meditation, psychedelics, or dreams. There's a whole path I could go there, but I'm just gonna leave that and move on. And you're thinking, well, this is just really hard to believe. What are you talking about, a universal consciousness that we all plug into? We are Unitarian Universalists who for ages have argued that there is a common thread uniting all of humanity and arguably all of life in one cosmic, interdependent web of life. Y'all remember that? This is our jam. We recognize the brilliance in humanity, and yet sometimes we trip over lived experiences, the awkward twists, the evolutionary process, the uncomfortable, antiquated social contexts, meanwhile acknowledging that certain humans seemed more attuned to the cosmic consciousness than others. This notion of non-local consciousness, of humans as a receiver of universal consciousness, instead of a self-generated storage of human thought, explains why we begin life ahead of the game than where our ancestors began. It explains why we can look at someone in history who was struggling with reconciling the past and the future, someone like Thomas Jefferson, who was raised to believe that he was entitled to own other people, and still very consciously struggled with those beliefs in his writings and in his actions. It explains why we can look at someone like Dr. Seuss, who in his decades-long career was a proponent of inclusion of the human spirit and many, many of our values, and yet fell very short in his depictions of Asian Americans, because that was the milieu and the social consciousness in which he was raised. Non-local consciousness explains brilliance in flawed humans without excusing their behavior, but giving them an opportunity to still be redeemed, which is what we as universalists purport to believe, right? In universal salvation. Now, if we had a magic time machine which would resurrect and transport Theodore Geisel to 2026 and say, hey, Doc, let's talk about those images. There's an exponential likelihood, I believe, based on his entire body of work, that he would say, yikes, I messed up. I'm deeply sorry. I was really influenced by the anti-Asian sentiment of World War II. Maybe Thomas Jefferson would make the same kind of statement. Maybe they wouldn't. But I think it's part of this discussion about universal consciousness. We can hold the nuance of knowing that brilliant people can also participate in systems of unimaginable cruelty and oppression, can't we? Two things can be true at the same time. Non-local consciousness explains much of human behavior deemed mysterious by other ages. The axial age, the influx of genius and spiritually awake beings like Buddha and Jesus and Confucius and so many others. The scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, the tech revolution, brilliant thinkers and scientists, yogis and spiritual leaders, all of whom were also flawed human beings, and also the open and fluid minds of young children who are not yet hampered by our societal restrictions on thought. Non-local consciousness also gives latitude for those for whom connectedness to a universal stream of thought is less apparent. Those who currently struggle with bigotry, bias, corruption, and oppression, whose greed, gluttony, and thirst for power overpowers the need of compassion and love and understanding for others in their life. This theory explains and helps to develop empathy in us to understand that some folks are less tuned in to the universal consciousness because they choose to be. An exercise we watch unfurl every day on the news as politicians discover their personal line has been crossed. And suddenly, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, and even Mitch McConnell are tuning in to realize evil is a choice. This theory does not change our responsibility to call those people out and back in, nor does it erase the pain they have caused. It merely might explain behavior. In Dan Brown's latest book, The Secret of Secrets, Robert Langdon's noetic scientist girlfriend, Catherine Solomon, almost takes the limelight. And through the context of a fiction work, consciousness is explored. And in it, the most powerful visualization of non-local consciousness is described. Throughout history, saints, heroes, and otherworldly beings are painted and etched in the same way, with a golden circle of light above their heads. Y'all can picture it, right? And Brown posits that halos are not there in ancient art to glorify some humans over others. Instead, halos are representations of receivers, of those who are intentionally and deliberately connected to the universal consciousness. They reveal that consciousness comes from without, not from within. That's a big statement. Prophets in Scripture are described as receiving divine wisdom, not formulating the wisdom, not broadcasting the wisdom, but receiving it. Buddhism describes enlightenment as connecting to that which has existed before and after, a receiver of universal wisdom not taught to the Buddha by mortal beings, and yet very much about human beings. Malcolm Gladwell's book, titled Blink, provides many, many examples of how we know more than we think we do, and how studies of consciousness show us that the power of intention is far greater than we give it credit. One psychologist discovered that if he watched an hour-long video of a married couple talking, he had a 95% chance of knowing whether they would still be married 15 years in the future. Testing his theory further, he said, maybe I can do it in under an hour. Through lots of scientific experiments and time, He got to the point that he kept reducing the time, and he found that his accuracy was still incredibly high after watching only 3 minutes of the couple talking. Another study looked at teacher effectiveness and found that when you compare student reviews from students who had actually had the professor for a whole semester, that students who had not been in the class could rank a professor's effectiveness consistent with those students who had been in the class. They could rank it effectively after only 2 seconds of a videotaped lecture. Gladwell's book centers on how our brains can make effective decisions very quickly. And what I love about it and what makes it more exciting is he believes we can train our brains to be better tuned in. Now, tuning into the frequency was a recurring theme in this consciousness research I was doing for this sermon. And non-local consciousness could be one explanation for a recurring mystery that I experienced during my chaplaincy work. After a couple of years of working at the hospital, I found myself opening the doors to an intensive care unit, only to hear a nurse say, "I was just about to call you," or, "A patient just died. How did you know?" More times than I can count, their phone was in their hand as I opened the door. They were about to call. Those moments never happened when I was doing rounds or, going about my business. They happened after I had been sitting in my office for a while doing paperwork, and I felt an internal tug that I needed to go check in. Our hospital had 5 ICU units. Somehow, my body knew where to start. It startled the nursing staff how unpredictable this routine became. But it was mysterious to me, too. Perhaps it was an incredible coincidence. Perhaps it was something else. Non-local consciousness may provide answers for many of the questions in our mind. The state and nature of our unique conscious selves, how we and others receive universal wisdom, nurture empathy and compassion, and connect to something larger than ourselves. Why also some humans fall short and how they might be redeemed, and how we as humans are so much more amazing than we could possibly imagine. Be gentle with others who take longer to find the path forward. And connect to that universal wisdom intentionally, today and every day, in the method most attuned to your own soul. We are all learning.
Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 298.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to thy with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted our privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Please check out your order of service and your connection card for upcoming events. For all of the following, please sign up on the connection card if you are interested. If you're interested in helping with the Addiction and Recovery event in May or with the General Assembly in June, please mark your connection card. Our church auction is live. Please log on and bid. The auction will be open all month, and we will have an auction closing celebration and item pickup on April 5th. Faith in Action is hosting an organizer training here for 3 weeks starting April 19th. If you are interested in more techniques for our justice work or have a friend who might be interested, please join us for this event. Pledge forms are due today. Tomorrow starts the calls, texts, and emails. Please turn in your pledge forms to save the stewardships team's time and efforts, and your effort in figuring out who is that calling me. We are about halfway through the needed pledges for our annual budget. Join us next week to celebrate Ostara. Please return your connection cards to the ushers at the end of the service. They're an important vehicle of communication. We also have some special announcements. Holly.
Thank you. Good morning. I will try not to be duplicative of what Marianne just said about calling and texting and emailing those of you who haven't turned in your pledges yet. But I wanted to give you an update on where we are. This is the 4th and final week, which means we're not going to be standing up here talking about it anymore. We will move into the next phase, which is making sure we get everybody done. So our goal for the pledging is $370,000. And so far we are at about 54%, which is $198,000. That's great. Thank you. In order to meet last year's level, we need to get to 87%, but actually to give all of our staff raises, which they so much deserve, I don't think they got raises last year, we need to get higher than 87%. But we're doing pretty good here for just 3 weeks in. We have gotten pledges from 28% of the congregation. We have about 200 people on our list, pledge units. Some of those units are couples and some are singles. And I want to hear from 200 people. I want to have 200 pledges filled out. And I just want to, this is really great, actually. I mean, look, 28% of people have filled up half of our bucket so far, which is very generous. I'm so appreciative. But it's also good news because we have a lot of people we haven't heard from yet. And so I think there's a lot of possibility for finishing up and getting all the way to the top. I want to say just a little bit about why you should fill out your pledge form, even if you are unable to make a pledge. There's a lot more on that pledge form than just how much money you can give in the next fiscal year. It's also an opportunity to say that if you can't give a pledge right now, that's okay. Just check that box off. Those of us on the stewardship committee do not know who has, pledged how much. All we know is that we haven't got a pledge form in yet. So if you check it off that you can't give, that's fine. We won't call you because you're not going to be on our list anymore. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then also in the pledge form is other volunteer opportunities, and it's a way to tell the church leadership that you are engaged and you do want to continue to be a member, even if you're unable to give this year. That's perfectly acceptable. And I'm going to say just one more thing. For those of you who maybe aren't members of the church, you can also pledge. We think of y'all as friends. A lot of people, there's some people who just haven't signed the membership book, but you're still part of our community. If you think of yourself as being more than a visitor here, then we would appreciate your financial contribution to all of the great things that happen here every week. And lastly, I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say. Yeah. No, there is one more thing. 2 people turned in pledges last week without a name on it. So if you'd want to check and see if you're still on my list, I'll be in the back today. So yeah, we got 2 paper pledges last week with an amount but no name, so we couldn't check you off. So thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Today is the last Sunday of Evelyn Doffin's art exhibit here in the sanctuary. It has lent so much color and so much humanity to our sanctuary. So if you are interested in these pictures, today is your opportunity. In honor of the legacy of our ancestors, let us carry the flame forward as we extinguish the chalice. I say that it touches us, that our blood is seawater and our tears are salt, that seed of our bodies is scarcely different from the same cells in a seaweed, and that the stuff of our bones is like the coral. I say that the tide rolls in on us, whether we like it or not, and the sands of time keep running their intended course. I say we have to go down into the waves trough to find ourselves and then ride her swell until we can see beyond ourselves into our neighbor's eye. I say that we shall never leave the harbor if we do not hoist the sail. I say that we have got to walk the waves as well as solid ground. I say that anyone who goes without consciousness of this will remain chained to a rusty anchor. May the journey find us worthy. Amen.